the last few days before the games and thinking that this doesn't give me anything. Like, I've been to the Olympics before. The Olympics experience is, I'm not here for that. I'm here for the gold medal. At least a medal. If not, that will be it will be 3 dark months ahead of me. Like, I'm here for that gold medal. And the same thing, I think that was also what made it different on that final lap, because even though like when we were able to separate from the rest of the group and we had like a medal each, basically when we were like 3 guys with a gap down to 4th, then we all know that we have a medal each. Then I was still like targeting, or like in my head, that was more like just like a ticking off box. Okay, now we go for the battle for the gold is starting.
The Norwegian method.
I'm KB, Kristian Blummenfelt, Olympic and 3-time world champion.
I'm Dr. David Lippman, a health and human performance specialist, and welcome to the Norwegian Method podcast.
The Norwegian Method.
Thanks to Plasma-Aid for sponsoring the episode. Plasma-Aid caught me a little bit with surprise earlier this winter when I started using it and I realized that suddenly we're having a jump of 10% of my oxygen uptake by implementing Plasma-Aid in my daily nutrition. I use Plasma-Aid before my hard sessions and also every evening. Over the last few years I've been feeling more like stiff in the morning when I'm waking up, but I do feel like this morning I feel better when I'm waking up. Like, I can sort of stand easier without knee pains, and I'm less stiff in the morning than what I was before after starting using Plasma-Aid in the evening. Experience the benefits yourself by using the code TRI20, that's TRI20, to get 20% off your next purchase. Check the show notes below for the code.
Welcome back to the Norwegian Method podcast. Joining me today is Kristian Blummenfelt. Welcome.
Thank you.
And today we're going to talk some training. I think people will be super excited about this. You've probably got the most interesting training in the world of triathlon in the last, call it, 3 years, including this one, perhaps. Going, as you know, famously from long course back to short course. And so,
from short course to long course.
Yes, well,
long course to short course.
Exactly. Short, long, short. And again, the move from that short to long is not uncommon, but the move from the long to short is probably where people are interested, surprised, keen to hear some more. So I guess let's take it from perhaps Kona is a good time to take it. And so how's training changed for you on a broad spectrum or a broad scale, like high level from then to now?
It hasn't been too drastically changed, I would say. Like, even when we train for Ironman, like typically the base training, like 90% of the training were the same, like threshold sessions were the same, the track sessions was almost the same. Like we could do 14, maybe even up to 16k on track at threshold, but when I trained for Ironman, I might have modified the session a little bit more to be longer reps, so maybe doing more 2Ks, 3Ks, while now I try to get like an artificial higher speed in general, so I can do more like 10 by 1K and then some 400s in the end, just to be able to run a little bit faster across the whole session, and I get a more better stride for what I need to do in short course, but sort of the training load is almost the same. And then the last 3 to 4 weeks going into a race, we normally, instead of going to VO2 max and trying to be more race specific and more polarized in the training, going for short course, then in long course we do more like going from threshold to more race pace, which is then slower but then significantly longer than threshold.
Yep, that makes a ton of sense. So moving towards specificity those last couple of weeks, the higher intensity stuff for the short course, and the longer course stuff is more race specific pace stuff.
And of course, like the difference on the bike, like I try to do everything I can on the TT bike when I'm doing long course, and everything I can on the road bike when I'm doing short course. Well, but also like also the specificity in terms of when you do long course, like it's basically just like one road out and back without really too much technical challenges. Maybe you have some crosswind, but that's it. While in short course, like to be able to do the turns and the cornering and the accelerations, the brakings, like all of those is also something I have to be more, or I have to sort of teach myself again. I tend to sort of lose that feeling of the turns if I haven't done it in a while.
And is that something you prepare for specifically? Do you do specific work on that leading into Olympic distance seasons?
Yeah, like we do more brick sessions in a more technical course. So I'm getting more at that sort of race pace, power, and getting comfortable with it more like leaning into the corners.
That's awesome. That's really cool to hear. So let's talk a bit about, you said more time in sort of TT position on TT bikes for long course. What about last year where you sort of didn't have a lot of time to prep for some of this? Can we maybe touch on some of what happened there?
Yeah, so last year I did basically a little bit of everything. It was, we call it soup, in a way. Like it's neither fish or meat. It's like something in the middle. I raced all from super sprint distance in Hamburg, sprint distance, Olympic distance, and some PTO races. But my target was, the main goal was to get better for Paris. So I did a lot of time on my Propel road bike, and then typically I think it was up here in Sierra Nevada, 10 days or 2 weeks before Ibiza, and that was the first time I was brushing off the dust from my TT bike and did some Olympics distance brick sessions on my TT bike. And then I got to Ibiza instead of race week, trying to get familiar with the bike and trying to get used to being back on the TT bike. So I wasn't dialed in, and to the race I did, it was more I was just jumping over to the bike and then raced as good as I could on that bike, and then back again on the road bike. So that was a challenge, both I would say in all of my races. I was very strong power wise going into Milwaukee as an example, but then I just cramped up coming off the bike, not because I was going too aggressively on the power compared to what I've been doing in training, but simply because I haven't been doing it for an hour or so in aero position, and that also took breaking my own on the inside of my quads, and that's something I need to, or it should be easier to dial in for Kona, because then I have 3 months where I can only focus on TT bikes.
Yeah,
TT bike.
That's awesome. It's such good insight that I think,
but also I post race I can't really complain too much about lack of being on a TT bike, because I'm racing like everyone else, and I just have to make the best out of it and sort of keep my excuses sort of for myself.
Well, I mean, we talked about this last night at dinner. We touched on it in a previous podcast with you and Gustav, where, racing only when you're perfectly prepared is not something that you value. You sort of prefer to go just turn up and race frequently and race the best. And some days it's going to be your day and some days it's not. And you guys have succeeded a lot more than you haven't.
Yeah, of course, everyone loves to be standing on the start line when you feel 100% fit. But also I like to, if I had a suboptimal preparation for a race, then I try to adjust my goal and my tactic for the race, and maybe being more reservative on the bike, and then trying to then see if again, sort of in Pontevedra, I got sick a week before the race and felt very flat energy wise, and then my goal for the race were do the best out of the situation. And I thought that if I'm able to basically do nothing on the bike and hide in the pack, and the pace is hard enough to people to be tired, I can maybe have a good day on the run. But it didn't end up to be a great one still, but it's the approach I will have if I'm not 100% prepared, trying to make the best out of it. And of course, if you know that you are not 100% fit or dialed in, then you also have to be more you can't race like you are in your fitness of your life. Then you have to change your approach, and I think that's good in terms of understanding again how to attack when you're strong, how to be more reservative when you're not strong.
Yeah, and I think it's a gift to the fans to some degree as well. Of course, they want to see you racing at your best, but they also want to see you racing. There are fans there who come out to watch, and it's cool for them to get to see you, right? There's kids or whoever else, whatever fans there are. So that's really cool. And I guess, how are you, you're pre any Olympic racing this year, to sort of break fourth wall a little bit in terms of timelines. How are you feeling? I mean, last year Olav was really excited about your performances in the shorter stuff. It sounds like you weren't as excited as Olav was. So where are you at? How are you feeling about everything?
Well, I haven't raced since Neom last year, but the training has been great since. So I feel I'm on track, I would say. Like it's been very smooth in the training and progress, and it's sort of like if you are doing like swimming on the beach in Australia where they have waves, you can either catch the wave or you cannot catch the wave. And if you're able to catch it, and you're sort of just like then all the training is just smooth, and you're responding well, and yeah, it's like a huge difference compared to not doing it, even though like you're doing the same training, but everything is just harder. And I would say this winter I've been able to catch that wave, and it's been good progress, and I've been able to get the results in the lab that I've been expecting or hoping to see, and I've been able to stay healthy and injured, and it's been good. It's like, but it's also like balancing on this edge for another couple of months until the games.
Yeah, and you mentioned in a previous podcast, like an advice to juniors is like, hey, sometimes you have to push it, and you know, you're going for an Olympic gold medal, so you know you can't be too conservative, but it's sort of how do you walk that line? That's the challenge.
But then I remember like back in 21, so I did a pretty good winter of training, and then I did a block of 4 races, I think, in then May-June period. And then at the end of that, I started like feeling like a niggle down on my left foot, and I was trying to balance that, doing the training without building on a stress fracture. And it was like always like, even though I was in the shape of my life, I knew that at any point, or I believe that at any point, that can just snap. So I remember like even the day before the games, when I did like my last 5 by 60 seconds of stride, and I was sort of just like relieved that I managed to do the training. Now I'm in the shape I need to be, and I can always finish 10K with a fracture.
Wow. And so you went into the Olympics thinking there's a chance I fracture my foot here.
Yeah, because I had like a small like niggle on my left foot for like the last month. And that's a tricky thing when you're getting in shape, especially on the run, is that all the forces is getting higher. Like when you're running 5 or 10 seconds faster per K on a threshold, like that's significant more impact on your bones than being not in shape.
Yeah.
So being able to balance that. So I was, you know, when if you have a small niggle and you're walking in the pool and you try to walk normal, so you don't look like you're limping. that was like how I was like trying to walk normal in the pool in Fontrone, and to be able to balance it out and get to Tokyo and to do the last training session without snapping it, I felt like relieved. And I know that it can be the same now. Like I want to be as close on the edge as possible in the training without stepping over. Thanks to VTMaster for sponsoring the episode. We are using VTMaster in training, in field, out on training camps, as well in the pool, in the lab, to get a better understanding of how the training we're doing is affecting the fitness we are having, and to understand the energy system better in order to reach peak human performance. It's been crucial to use VTMaster in order to be able to swap from short distance over to full distance Ironman and back into short distance, in order to understand how the energy system have been changed. We're also using VTMaster to get a better understanding of a resting metabolic rate and to understand the energy cost of the calories over total training volume after weeks, months, and years of training, and to get a better understanding of the training budget that we are having.
Yeah, wow. That's fascinating insight. I think people will be great to hear that. I mean, even the concept that someone like you who trains so much and has so much volume and so much capacity, that you have these periods where training always feels hard, and then you have at the moment a period where everything feels easy. You could probably do 5% more and still feel easy. So
yeah, and that's like the beautiful thing of being in shape and everything's just like floating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's exciting for me to hear. It'll be exciting when listeners hear this, and probably if your competitors could hear this right now, they'd be a little bit concerned. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, prep at the moment. Proportionately, you talked already about sort of how you modify training. You said it's pretty similar, Olympic to to longer course stuff, but are the proportions of swim, bike, and run the same, or are they a little bit different because the bike's so much shorter now?
I try to balance it out where I feel I need to be better in order to take the gold. And I think the bike fitness I wore last summer on the road bike was like I did my peak power, both 20 minutes, 60 minutes, and but my swim and run wasn't really there. And then I think it's important, if you want to improve something, you also have to be confident enough that if I'm lifting up the swim and the bike, swim and the run, then I have to be like feeling okay that the power will maybe drop a little bit on the bike. So sometimes I'm sort of making the longer bike intervals shorter. So instead of stretching it up to like 7 to 80 minutes, I'm more of now saying that I did 60 minutes at threshold. I can still do another 20 minutes, but I'm calling it a day now. So I have more energy for the swim threshold in 2 days or the track session tomorrow. So trying to balancing it out like that.
Yeah, and Olav's happy for you to make those decisions by yourself?
We have like a plan together. So we discussed like I'm telling him my approach, how I think I can, what's important with the training. And then sometimes he can say that he still wants me to do an extensive bike session simply because he doesn't want me to do too much running. And that can be because he sees that I'm suddenly running faster again. If my threshold pace on the run goes down by 5 or 7 seconds, then he tried to be aware that he can't just push me to do everything faster, because then also the risk of injury is increasing. So then he might say that he still maybe want to give me that stress on the bike rather than on the run.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so just touching on that, it sounds like then the focus at the moment in your prep for the Olympic Games is probably swim and run.
Yeah.
And you're sort of thinking that that's going to make... Is that because of where you feel you need to improve, or do you think that reflects the race as well? Is it both, or is it more about you?
It's both. Like I raced short distance the whole last year, and I felt the most important thing for me were to do enough to qualify in terms of the points. And I'm now ranked like 11th or something on the Olympic ranking, which is well inside. And also to get an idea of what I need to do the last 6 to 10 months going into the games. And I think in all of my races, I were like 50 to 60 seconds off the pace in order to beat or to run with Alex and Hayden over a 10K. And I also felt I wasn't in my best run shape of my life. So then then we need to change the training in order to get there.
Yeah.
And the same with the swim, like I need to do more race pace, or like feel better around the race pace.
So you felt you were off the back a little bit from a run form, but also in the total race as well. So you sort of need to work to bridge up, I guess, a little bit more in the swim, but then also pick that run up a little bit.
Yeah, but maybe not in the run form, but more runs 10K specific form.
Gotcha.
So the thing is, like I felt I was just one gear short.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so I guess, where's your mindset at the moment with the Olympic Games? Are you kind of, this is the things I need to do to win, or are you visualizing yourself on the podium? Are you thinking about competitors?
No, I'm thinking about myself winning. Like that was the same mindset I had going into the games. I remember, going into Tokyo.
Yep.
I remember being like in the athletes' village, like the last few days before the games, and thinking that this doesn't give me anything. Like I've been to the Olympics before. The Olympics experience is, I'm not here for that. I'm here for the gold medal. At least a medal. If not, it will be 3 dark months ahead of me. Like I'm here for that gold medal. And the same thing I think that was also what made it different on that final lap, because even though like when we were able to separate from the rest of the group and we had like a medal each, basically when we were like 3 guys with a gap down to 4th, then we all know that we have a medal each. Then I was still like targeting, or like in my head, that was more like just like a ticking off box. Okay, now we go for the battle for the gold is starting.
Wow, that's amazing. So you turned up to the village and thought, okay, this is fine, but I this will be a failure if I don't at least medal, preferably gold.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's still there for you now. You're thinking, listen, I'm not going to these games for anything else. I don't really care. If I perform well, I have to win this.
Yeah, it's the same. Like a gold medal is the target, and then a medal is sort of is like coming, not coming with what you had, but like it's sort of even.
Yep.
And then not a medal is a failure. But I'm also like, as if we're going into Tokyo, I'm sort of okay with knowing that I might leave this race with a failure.
Yep.
But I will deal with it. That's something I will then deal with afterwards. I will not think about like the consequences there and then, but I will just like hopefully appreciating that I'm in the shape I want to be in when I'm standing there in Paris, and feeling the confident that I've done it before, and just enjoying the moment.
That's awesome. And anybody that maybe listeners haven't heard of or wouldn't be thinking about that you think is going to perform well at the Olympics? Or is it the same old? Is it Hayden and Alex?
I think it can be more opened than that. I think in you obviously have the French team. Like
Yep.
they will be strong, and the French have never won an individual medal in the games, and they are now racing at home as one of the biggest triathlon nations we have in the world. They have the French Grand Prix, so they have a system where they really should have had won a medal in the past, but they haven't. So they have a lot of pressure, all of them. And the same with Alex and Hayden. They have been the two best short course guys over the last 3 years, but none of them have won the World Series. It's been always gone to French guys, or like one of the French have been sneaking it in the very end. So I think especially the three from the French team and Alex and Hayden is going in there with even more pressure than what I have, and expectation from both their teams and their federations. And then I think the Germans can easily pop up with some good ones. Like it seems like they are having a really strong generation coming through now. And of course, like Australia, they had an awful game in Tokyo, and often what you see post an awful game is hunger. So Matthew Hauser, or they can be strong as well.
That's cool insight. That's really cool to have a bit of a preview there. And not so much with respect to the Olympic distance stuff, because that chooses itself. But I think people are fascinated by how frequently you race, and there's a bit of a tension between you and Olav. How do you choose races? Like, what excites you about races?
I don't know, FOMO.
Okay.
I don't know, like no, I just like the racing, but also the fact I need someone, I guess, to push me. Like I'm in contrast to Gustav, I'm responding better on racing more than what he does.
Yep.
So I also have a positive feedback, like training wise, but if I do like a racing block, and that's something I enjoy, and I feel, why should I do a monster session up here when I can do a monster session at the race course?
Yeah. And that makes so much sense. Like, to piece that together for listeners to really contextualize it and try to maybe take something away from this for themselves, there's this component of you enjoy racing.
Yeah.
That's one part of it. There's you respond well to racing, right? Which is another huge part of it. So there's this kind of, and you're willing to race when you perhaps aren't in the perfect shape. So now you have this trifecta of things that works together as like, I can race myself fairly fit and respond well, and I enjoy that.
And I would rather get a second or third place than not racing.
Yep.
If that makes sense. Like, it's another second place, and then you can win when you're feeling 100% fit, and you can get like top 5 or top 3. I don't think it, I think it can prepare you in a better way. Like, you can get the experience in the same way I raced Super League last year. Not that I was expecting to win or podium, because I haven't done that super short stuff and the training for it in a while, but I thought that I could utilize those races to get the experience I need, or like especially like riding technical courses that they are putting on and racing with the best guys who is best there. That like it's really max, like it's really, for me, it's making all of my weaknesses very visible.
Yep.
and then I have something to work against. So it's not just to go into a race to win it, but it's like the obstacle or the challenge with it.
Yeah. And I mean, the other, I guess, context there is you guys recover really well from racing. I mean, it's something I've observed of Ironman athletes particularly, or the sport of Ironman or long distance triathlon is a very frequent race cadence. You guys race multiple of these a year, whereas, the elite marathoners perhaps only do 3 maximum, maybe a couple of half marathons. It's a lot less load, but as Olav explained in season 1, like a lot of that's to do with total training volume. So, for you to do a super sprint, you probably are a bit sore from it. I mean, it's high intensity and there's a lot of forces and there's some risk there, but in terms of training load,
it's lower.
Yeah.
So like if I do a month of racing every week for like 4 races, then if you look at my training peaks, like the training stress will go lower.
Yep.
And my capacity will drop, but what I will get is like the intensity.
Yeah.
And I tend to respond well on that muscular stimuli. So if I'm racing hard, let's say Saturday or Sunday, and then I do like 2 easy days with I can still do some volume, but some more like just zone 1, and then maybe some short threshold sessions Wednesday or Thursday, and then again ready to go for next week. And I find that to be a very nice balance, like peaking for the weekend and sort of having a drop midweek, and then going full gas again for the week. And
I mean, and
and
that's
also there, like to know how your body is responding. I think it's important, and also you utilize like sleep and caffeine and like that. So you can use like caffeine for the races in the weekend, and then you can spread like with purpose. You can pull that back when you're doing like harder stuff or like longer ride Wednesday or Thursday. So you will maybe feel more rubbish, but then you also know that you will respond way better again for the weekend when you add on caffeine again. Morten is rocket fuel, as we call it. The 320 drink mix is, I think the first few times you're trying it out, like you really feel surprised how strong you will finish off the session. Like if you're going out for a long run and you start to ride with 2-3-20s in your bottle, you will feel the straight benefits by the end of the session, just because it takes a longer time until you're bunkering. Solid 160, it's a great addition to the supplement. It's like good to get something that's not just liquid, like when I'm out riding before a run session, if I want to have some quick snacks but giving me that energy, it's a great bar to get in. And also it takes a bit like more, it's more solid than just the drink mix. To benefits from a one-time code and to get 20% off your next order, check our show notes.
Have you restricted caffeine at all in this camp? Because I don't think you have, Matt. I've seen what you've been drinking from a coffee perspective.
I think when I'm counting caffeine levels, I don't take in coffee into my...
Okay, so coffee doesn't count?
It doesn't count.
Okay.
That's just a part of the morning routine, really.
Okay.
Like, if I'm not getting my cups of coffee in the morning, I feel my brain is laying in a hammock on the beach, and it doesn't want to move.
Okay. That's fascinating.
And the thing is, like, if I do like a rest day, decaffeinated, it feels harder for me than a track session or like riding from the bottom and up with threshold.
Wow.
Simply because like the body doesn't want to move.
Wow. That's interesting. I guess we talked a lot about races and racing, and you already mentioned that you use some of the super sprint stuff to try and highlight your weaknesses. What does a review of a race look like for you, or a season, or both? Like, how does that process look for you?
It's more like before the season, try to set myself goals of what I want to achieve, and that can be both with Olav or just for myself. We can do it. Sometimes I'm just writing like a list on my notes. That can be like while traveling, and it's often happening after a poor race. We feel like I feel I'm often getting more motivation from losing a race than I'm getting from winning it. So then, if you're traveling home from Yokohama and you have like 15 hours in the plane, then you're just sitting there and like bring up the notes, and it's like, okay, well, like there's a bit of desperation, like, okay, well, what do I need to do in the training until Paris if we want to win it. Like maybe I need to move my saddle a little bit further back. Maybe I need to, in order to get more balance on the bike, because I'm not riding technically good enough, or if I need to run more without carbon shoes because my leg breaking stiffness is maybe I'm not getting the same response anymore, or if I need to do shorter intervals on the track but still the same volume to get more higher speed, or doing my easy rides even easier or higher pace. Like I'm like sort of giving myself like a list of things I want to target over the next 2 or 3 months, and then I try to sort of follow that, and sometimes it doesn't work, and then but then at least like I made like something I want to try out, and then if it doesn't work, then I can go back to what I did before.
Yep. And do you run that by Olav? Do you talk to him about it at all? Is it just
yeah,
like
we can have those discussions, and he tends to be very like let me play around quite a bit, because he also, I think he feels confident that the changes that I'm doing is I do them for a reason, and I think also his experience is that it often works, but we tend to discuss it, and he might come with his input, and then so he's open for like changes, and that's also something he have learned me since he came in. Like it's not just about ticking off training. Like you're not just doing the same training week in and week out. Like if you can optimize a session by like driving down to Granada to have a better place, we can do it more technically. That's sometimes better than just ticking off the same session up here.
Yeah. Awesome. And do you discuss use of super shoes with Olav? Is it kind of like, hey, I want you to be into these or out of these for this session? Or is it more like, hey, you get to choose, these are what we're seeing, and you sort of choose from there?
We have a understanding of how much I should be like using them.
Yep.
But it's not like he doesn't come in and control what I should do, but we are like well informed of the consequences of using them too much.
Yep.
But we also know that I have to use them, because that's it's also about getting used to that pace and the stride.
Yep.
So he trusts me that I can balance it out.
Yeah, it's a similar discussion to the TT bike. You need to be comfortable with those, or comfortable on a TT bike or whatever. You also mentioned some travel, and we're going to touch a bit on travel here. So just from a perspective, like I guess to some degree training, is like, how's it been traveling without Gustav? I mean, there's a component of course, companionship, but then there's also the component of like you get to train with him and he's helpful in training. So how's it been traveling without him so much the last year and a bit?
It's more lonely in one sense, but also like we are meeting a lot of other athletes on the way. So I've been I haven't just been by myself.
Yep.
So that's sort of good. But of course, like we have spent a lot of time on training camps, so I've still been able to see him, and he's been there or thereabout. So of course, like I'm maybe more missing him in training, where we're like having those session that's almost feeling like a race, where we're both like playing almost like sometimes he's sort of attacking on the bike, and I have to sort of, he's taking me off guard, and I have to really dig deep to catch him back again. And then like those race simulations, and also meeting up to a session where we both know that today we're going to push hard, is maybe something I've been missing.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Join the Centaur Tech membership clubhouse. You will get exclusive content, in-person and online events, partner discounts, and so much more. Apply to join at centaurtech.com/membership.
So let's touch on travel. You were in Abu Dhabi, and then you were teasing going to the T100. You seem to have a lot of enjoyment for travel and racing. What's the most number of flights you've taken in a week?
This is not something to be proud of, really, because it's not good for it's probably like not woke, but like environment. It's not environment friendly, but this was back in the days when I was younger, before I knew better. And after having chased those mileage points for like a year and a half, I was so close to get that gold card membership, and it's a little bit embarrassing to say, but then mid-season, this is almost 10 years ago, mid-season after Hamburg, I had like 2 weeks of mid-season break, and I was like, shit, I need to go. I need to do something. I need to get that gold card so I can get fast track and lounges and extra luggage. So then they had like this offer in Norway where you could buy one flight ticket with one company for like 300 euros and fly as much as you wanted within 2 weeks. But you can maximum do one flight 3 times.
Yep.
So then I made like a massive like schedule like around to squeeze in as many flights as possible. So I was like flying out and back in the morning, did my training at home, and then in the evening again went to the airport and I flew like out and back. So I ended up with 29 flights in 6 days. And that was enough to bring me to my first year as a gold card member.
That's awesome. You also told me you...
And then the funny thing is, like, so 2 weeks after I started this, I was racing the nationals in Kristiansand, that's south in Norway. And then I still had, like, I could still fly. But I used up my flights from Bergen to Kristiansand. So to go there, I had to fly, like, 3 flights to get, like, a... to get there, like, via 2 other cities.
But you also told me you weren't parking at the airport because you didn't want to pay for parking. Is that true?
Yeah, so the whole... so then I took the car, drove as closely as possible to the airport, had my bike in the trunk, and then rode like the last 2K to the airport, parked the bike there, and then, yeah, flew. Awesome. And then the funny thing is that traveling is tiring. Like, you get tired of flying. So the feeling you're normally getting after being on training camp when you get like home and like laying in the couch, like, oh, I had that same feeling every day for 6 days.
That's great. That is great. But so then, as such a seasoned campaigner, someone who's traveled so much, someone who flies so much, what advice do you have for people aside from being a gold class member so you can be in the lounge?
Like, you need to like eat and drink well when you're flying. I think that's like the key. Like, it's easy to almost forget your eating rhythms when you're flying, and also in the plane, the air is like, you're higher up in the altitude. You're not in the same, like, they have like extra oxygen in the plane than you are at 10,000 feet or so, but it's still like altitude, which is more dry air. Important to keep drinking and maybe bringing like covering for the eyes to be able to sleep better, noise cancelling.
That's kind of a really nice sort of bit of advice on travel. I mean, this is something that's been interesting to me. You've obviously moved back down to short course. You know, you are targeting Kona this year. Will you do any more short course racing after that? Is it something you still want to do, or not really?
No, like it's almost like annoying. Like they're putting the World Triathlon Series Grand Final the week before Kona. They make it impossible to do a double.
Yep.
It's like,
yeah,
they should have planned the season so it's doable to both do the World Series and Kona the same year.
Okay.
So
is that something that would interest you, to try and go for something like that, to win like a short course and a super long course at the same time?
I basically did it in 21. Yep. Like, it got postponed until May 22, the Ironman, but so I basically did it. But again, like now it's only 2 races, and that also makes the race in Yokohama and Cagliari a little bit less important in terms of performing, but it's more like for my own sake. I want to show that I can be up there and that the running pace is where it needs to be, and that I'm swimming better than what I did last year.
Yeah, okay. But sort of longer term thinking, sort of beyond 1 year, will you keep doing any short course, or have you it's kind of happy to walk away from Paris no matter what happens, gold, silver or bronze, and be happy?
I don't know about the games. I might pop back for LA, but I think in terms of short course, like for 25 or 26, I will stay away, and then we will see. The future might tell what's happening in 2025.
I like that. I like keep people guessing. Maybe you're the first guy to go down, up. So up, down, down. You get the point. Listeners get the point. We touched a little bit on the T100 already, and some of your how you feel about racing and racing out of shape, these sort of things, and some of the struggles around performing perhaps last year, given the sort of soup of training you were doing. Talk to me about Singapore. How was winning that? Was it feeling like enjoyment, or was it frustration? Was there pressure that you were sort of worried about? Like, how did Singapore feel? Because you'd sort of had some tough racing in the T100, or what was PTO at the time?
Yeah, so for those who don't remember, so Singapore were a day and a half after I raced in Paris. So that was like 9-day block where I think I raced in Paris test event on the Friday. I jumped on a plane, so I finished 9th in the test event. Again, I was like a minute off the pace, or a minute off the pace compared to Alex Yee, who won that race. And I came 9th. Jumped on a plane to Singapore. Just the day before the test event in Paris, I did a bike fit, or like on the TT bike, because I cramped up like 2 or 3 weeks before in Milwaukee, and I didn't have any time since I cramped up to do any changes. So I just lifted up the saddle a little bit, and then I traveled to Singapore, overnight flight, slept really good on the plane. Came there Saturday evening then. Just enough time to head out, get some food, and then squeezed in a heat session in the evening as I got to Singapore, like overdressed on the treadmill just to get some sort of stimuli, because that was what I was maybe most nervous about. Like the rest of the guys who raced there, they were basically like in Thailand or like for 2 weeks just doing heat acclimation, and I'm popping there like getting there the evening before, and like, yeah, finger crossed, I'm going to pace well. Yep. And got there, again, a good night of sleep. And it's almost like an advantage, because I slept enough on the plane, and I think I got like 5 more hours during the night before race morning, and got there. Obviously, I didn't have any time to see through the course. So everyone else had been like having like a bike preview, and I got there, and I had to figure out, this is the venue, where is the swim start? It's over there, because the loops goes there. Okay, like, and I remember like trying to understand how the bike was like sort of turning into true transition, and there again, like I had to have the approach that I have to use the first lap on the bike to just settle in and understand the bike course, and then I can use the rest of the courses, like the rest of the laps, to push on. Yep. And also having my US Open Milwaukee race in mind, where I cramped up on the run, no, on the bike, or on the run after the bike. I had to race a little bit more reservative, and also it was warm, humid, so I was a little bit more careful there. And I felt, of course, like in one way the pressure to perform, because people were saying like, oh, it's stupid to do both like races, and it's like way too much, and it's not healthy. And I sort of wanted to showcase that I can also win PTO race. I've been trying at that time a couple of times. Like I wasn't able to make it to the start line in 2020 at Daytona. I didn't win in Edmonton when Gustav won. I also cramped up at that race. And then I lost to Max Newman in Ibiza. I lost Jan in Milwaukee. So this was like my 5th time trying then. And it was like a massive relief to finally be able to tick it off.
Yep. And so like, I'm fascinated by this, because you've got this pressure, you've got this relief. You also have this sort of self-imposed pressure of like how you're evaluating Paris. And you also sort of set yourself up for some of this pressure. Like, is that something you enjoy? You kind of set yourself up for that pressure around, you had no reason to want to go to Singapore. You just raced Paris. There's a good reason not to go to Singapore, but you decided, no, I'm going to go to Singapore, pile extra pressure on, because now people think I'm doing something stupid. Do you thrive on that pressure? Is that something you really enjoy?
Yeah, I do. Like, it's about the challenge. Like, you want to do something crazy. And I think that's been in the nature in our training group from the very beginning. Like, we have had the freedom to think outside of the box. And the same, like, just before, like up here in 2017, before I did my first half Ironman distance, then we we thought, okay, we need to do some crazy long rides to see how the body is responding on that. And we ended up doing like one ride at 10 hours, another ride at like 12 hours. We
Wow.
actually rode down from Sierra Nevada, and we went all around the mountain chain and then up again. That was like 305 Ks with quite a bit of altitude.
Wow, that's a lot of gain.
And that's a little bit like the same. Like it's like back then you would probably say like it's no reason to do it. Like not even the long distance guys are riding such a long rides, but we were sort of being motivated by the challenge and not the stupidness, but like being a little bit like thinking outside of the box and being a little bit crazy.
And do you have any ideas about what some of those longer term projects might be in that realm? Like, like sort of done what you want to do in long course and short course now. Do you have anything in your back of your mind like, oh, there's this crazy thing I want to do?
We have some projects that might pop up in the future.
Okay.
That's too soon to be announced.
Okay.
But of course, like it would be nice to go back to that sort of, the childish dream to try to do something completely new or like unexpected. That's
really cool. I think that's a great spot to leave the podcast, leave people hanging. So thanks so much for your time, Kristian. It's been great. And please, that's the end for another week of the Norwegian Method podcast. So please do share the podcast with people. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. And we will talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The Norwegian Method.